presenters that have gone before me, but there's a lot of familiar faces in the room. Some of my bio didn't really go into my marine environmental response experience. I spent about 7, 8, 9, 10 years of my 16, almost 17-year career doing environmental response work. 7 of it on the Coast Guard strike teams, which are specialized units that support large responses. We travel the United States seeking fun and stress and a lot of sleepless nights for man-made events and natural disasters, most of which involve oil and chemical spills. And after my tour down here in lovely South Louisiana and Grand Isle, I'm becoming a prospective graduate student for Yale's environmental management program, where I'll go pay back Coast Guard headquarters, where Mr. Lundgren just left from, and will hopefully be implementing some policy and procedures up there as well. But a quick little fact over the years, I don't know how many people are, for the researchers in the room who aren't familiar with the response side of an oil spill. The ICS process is fluid, right? It's built upon looking into tomorrow. What can we do tomorrow? How, what are we doing today, and how can we improve or advance our process tomorrow? With the scientific folks in the room, and especially with Paige and the SSCs, leading the environmental unit for the planning process, but also feeding the response side, which is kind of where I grew up in, the operations side. For many years, I don't know how many people know Captain Roger LaFerrier. He was my kind of mentor as I grew up in the environmental response field, and he was a bulldog. But when I was young in the Coast Guard, I got to follow him around and be a fly on the wall and observe a lot of things that people kind of have to make decisions on the fly. So I've got to spend many, many years observing people make decisions, right ones, wrong ones, indifferent ones, and I got to see it from the side. So hopefully, one day when I'm in Commander Denning's shoes, I'll be able to reflect on those things and do more good than harm. Is that what you said? Okay, yes. Hopefully I can do that. So from an operations perspective and from being a fly on the wall perspective, let me move into the science piece. In late evening hours, a couple days after Thanksgiving, in 2004, a large tank vessel, Athos 1, hit a submerged object in the Delaware River just outside New Jersey, Marlborough, New Jersey. That's where I was baptized into the oil spill response world, I guess you could say. When I walked in, about 24, 48 hours after the initial response, it looked like the stock market in there. It was in the Holiday Inn, downtown Philadelphia, and there were papers flying all over the place, people screaming, people yelling with their blinders on. They all had good intentions. They all had great information that they wanted to share. But for all you researchers in the room and all you scientific folks that haven't experienced a large response like this, how do you want to be successful in a response? You want your voice to be heard, right? The best way to have your voice to be heard is to be seen, okay? Embed yourself into the management process. Find yourself to be seen in front of those decision makers. Remove your emotion. Everyone, it's a high stress environment to begin with. Everyone has expectations of them, from the response side, from the government regulatory side, to the responsible party side, who is fiscally responsible for the oil spill, for the Coast Guard to manage the whole situation, the science folks, SSCs, providing information to the decision makers, to the state folks who also have their chain of command to keep informed as well. I've found throughout responses over the years that emotion is a big driver and cooler heads prevail, right? It's amazing to find those who are calm in the face of emergencies are the ones that people look to for advice. And if you want to be that important person in the room and you want to be that one that someone relies upon, like Paige, she's the calm in the room, right? We need that calm in the room. Science is important, but the best way to get your science heard, be calm. Present it. Find a good way to present it. And then, for those responses, the previous slide I showed, some folks aren't familiar with, the Coast Guard is inherently a military organization. We wear a uniform every single day. We follow what's called a chain of command, right? This ICS process is not new to us. What it is new to are a lot of folks in the room who are used to working in a pretty static environment. Not having to navigate the politics of a response to, it's not always about networking, right? Where in the civilian side, networking works. It works. This person's going to get this done for me and what have you. In the response side, it doesn't always work, right? It's actually could be counter to what you're trying to get done. So if the faster you understand the incident command process, adapt it, and really kind of take it on, you're going to find yourself more successful in a response environment. I don't know how much time I have left. Okay, so 3 minutes. I don't know if I'll need all of it, but I want to also beat a hammer on what Paige said earlier about your research is important. Research, data, knowledge is so important. But the only way to have your research heard is to find its way into the planning process before it hits the fan. All right? You need to allow the decision makers to use your information in a way that can't be quickly discarded during a response when there's tons of information being thrown to those decision makers. Okay? So the area committee is the fantastic, best way to allow your information to find its way into the response community. It allows itself to be vetted. It allows those discussions to happen when we have the time to have those discussions. If you're wanting your research to be seen or heard during a response, sometimes it's important, it will be heard, but it may not be as heavily considered as that information that's been vetted through the planning process. I kind of went off, I started writing notes after listening to you guys, so I went off my path that I came planned for. Yeah, I responded, absolutely. And the Coast Guard, we are not inherently a scientific organization. I mean, I'll say it again. It's been said 3 or 4 times already while we've been in the room. What do we do best? We've heard the cats. We bring people together. We come with humility. We know what we know and we know what we don't know, and we rely heavily on those folks to help us make the right decisions. But we're also in the spotlight. Oil spills are crazy because it's the intersection where economics, politics, and the environment all come together and they meet head on. And the person who gets pushed up to the top is the one that Commander Denning was just talking about, and that's the FOSC. Sometimes it's the captain of the port. If it's a Suns event, sometimes it's someone higher. But it's a unique event. It's a very, very, very unique event. Many times you'll find the environment and politics paired up with each other, or the economics and politics paired up with each other. But there are very few events where all those come together and they need to be harmonious. And it's the Coast Guard, scientific support coordinators with NOAA, all the other trustees and agencies that have a vested interest in the response. That's where we all come together. So I departed from my path, but I have 1 minute. I will like to say, being in Grand Isle for the last 6 months that I've been in Grand Isle has, despite my 30, 40 days during Deepwater Horizon when I was down there. It's a unique community. It's a community that relies heavily on the environment, and the decisions that are made in a response environment. I don't think I fully understood how heavy those decisions impact the communities, the small communities of these local areas that rely heavily on the natural environment, not just for sustenance and for recreation. You know, I've never really lived. I've talked about it, but I've never really experienced it until just now. So if you haven't spent some time in southern Louisiana, I recommend you do it. Go down, check it out, really see what the impact of a natural disaster or a man-made disaster has towards the public, not just the environment itself, because there's a lot to play.